Well, on Tuesday we reached the 6-week mark of confinement here in Paris. Can you believe it? And to date it's been incredibly hectic for my clients and all businesses as they initially race to adapt their online models. But our focus is now starting to turn towards the future of our businesses and COVID-19's economic impact. So today I'm taking a trip across the English Channel to the land of the Scottish play, where I figure who better to catch up with than an actual Macbeth. But lucky for us, this Macbeth is the Vice President of the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to chat all things business and the economy. But first up, I have a little challenge for her. Kirsty Macbeth, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Tell me what this means to you. Things without all remedy should be without regard. What is done is done.
Oh, God, Lady Macbeth, Shakespeare's most famous and frightening female. Do you know, the best thing about that quote, though, is not only, I think that she was probably in confinement, like she was in a castle. She convinced her husband to commit regicide, and then the whole tale begins after that. So if that's what happens to that woman in Scotland in the pandemic, like I'm starting to really worry about what's going to happen to everybody else. But I think it's a really clever quote, especially in this time, because it's about not looking at the past. So she's trying to convince her husband, who she's, goaded his masculinity into killing the King Duncan for her own ambition. And then he's feeling guilty. So she comes in and says, don't worry, what's done's done. Don't look at the past. And I think it's a really great time because we have to look, we have to take stock and look back at what's happened, but we can only look to the future now. And I think that especially where businesses are concerned and what we do as part of the Edinburgh Chamber is putting that support in and looking at how do we not thrive and survive, but how do you move from response to recovery? So I think it's okay to look back at the past, like Lady Macbeth says, don't worry, but I do think it's about looking at the future. So I'm going to put a positive spin on a frightful woman.
Well, thanks for bringing it back into our century for us, but I just couldn't resist, of course. So a lot of us are now sitting around the 4 to 6 week mark of COVID-19 restrictions. And with the initial shock and chaos that followed the introduction of the restrictions, we're now really starting to turn our focus to the economic impact. And I wanted to ask you, how do you see things playing out over there in Scotland?
What was a pandemic and a health crisis is fast becoming an economic crisis. And in Scotland, we have devolved powers from the UK, but it's a smaller economy. And it's an economy that is built on tourism. We have a good data and digital economy. We have great forestry, mining, agriculture, oil and gas. But what we're trying to do at the minute is look at what are those impacts going to be into the long term, because the chief economic advisor for Scotland came out last week, has basically said that this is the steepest and fastest downturn that the country has seen, that GDP will fall by 33%, which is enormous. Everyone talks about unprecedented figures, and it really is a time in the economy where the world has stopped. And so how do you reboot it and how do you bring it back? Anyone who's doing a public service, hospitality especially, are going to be the greatest impact. Because one of the things that you have to look at within the economy is people aren't going to go out after lockdown measures ease and go and buy 2 meals for every one they would have made. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So there's no way to make that up. And, my background in sort of theatre and events and entertainment, you look at all of the producers who are sitting there who cannot make up those ticket sales. They're gone. So you have to start from ground zero. There are lots of different implications that are now coming into play, and especially within Scotland, because the tourism industry is so key to what we do. I think there was a figure that there could be a £1 billion impact in Edinburgh during the festival period, because all of the festivals are closed, all of the tourism won't be there, all of the things that happen behind it. And I think it's really easy sometimes that we forget the knock-on effects that all of this will have. Consumer confidence, maybe not. Consumer spending is going to be irrevocably changed. There was a McKinsey report that came out in the US that basically said that I think it was 20% of all transactions across Europe and America would go online. So there becomes things about business adaptation. How does your model work? And it's really sad, but some small businesses won't survive this. So how do we, as a total economy, how do we put in as much support that we can. And I really think that it will be businesses that can adapt their operating model, that can make really bold decisions and make them quickly, who can look at the options that are on offer. Scotland's really good at the moment because there are options on offer like business interruption loans, the coronavirus interruption business loans. It's called CBILS for short. There are retention schemes that you can take advantage of, but it's also about businesses who can look to industry and support. One of the things that the Chamber and the CEO has been really good at is adapting the business model very quickly to run free webinars and to move everything digitally where they can. Then, that's the response. So in the recovery, it's how do you then look to diversify revenue streams? And I think that's crucial for businesses to be able to adapt their operating model.
You just touched on earlier Scotland's digital economy. And something that interests me that I was previously unaware of actually is that Scotland is the UK's largest tech incubator with a really vibrant tech startup scene. Do you think that the current climate has had any impact, negative or positive, on that? And where do you see this heading now?
I'll caveat with all of this with I'm not an economist. I work within the business sphere of Scotland. There's been a lot of really unique trends across the world that have happened in sort of the last couple of years. We've seen unique generational changes. We've got the rise of isms, nationalism, veganism, plantism. But two of the big things is that in 2020, Gen Zs now dominate the workforce. Millennials have become the most entrepreneurial generation in Western history. And in that has driven the biggest workforce generational shift in 100 years of self-employment. And this is really key across the world because that's been driven and people are self-employed. They're the people that are going to be affected the most. Edinburgh is uniquely set up. It has the unicorns like Skyscanner and FanDuel. It's set up to attract foreign investment. So Fujitsu, IBM, HP have come into the market. We have some of the most incredible world-leading universities on our doorstep that are into life sciences and biotics to support it. And then we have digital academies, which is a Code Clan, which sits part of Codebase, which is all private equity based. So people who are looking to invest can go into those incubators, have a look at the startups and literally support and promote them moving forward. And that's why it has become this kind of tech incubator and hub. So all of these great things of partnerships with academia, with private equity, with foreign investment, all sit within that. So when you take government investment, you take university educated, so you have skills that are constantly coming into the market and highly regarded skills, you've got a very good infrastructure for the economy to flourish. So I think that once we come out of the pause, as I like to call it, I think that industry will flourish and probably be a lot of the foundation moving forward about where the economy recovers quicker.
You mentioned earlier also about businesses making changes, and a lot of the talk that we hear at the moment is about businesses pivoting. What advice can you give to businesses to ensure that they're pivoting in a valuable and sustainable direction for their future and not just making these knee-jerk reactions and decisions whilst under immense pressure?
I think that people have become really overwhelmed with all of the negative language. Death, pandemic, crisis, economic crisis, survive, protect. There are all of these things that are contracting. So they make you sort of step within yourself. But like I said at the beginning, businesses that can adapt their operating model, that can have a look and take time, because it is a very rare, in fact, and I'm going to use the word unprecedented time where the whole global economy has paused. People have now got the opportunity to really look at their business model. What is it? Where can I adapt? There's a fantastic, I don't know if, look it up, and whoever's watching this, look it up. Hatfield House in Ireland is a pub. And Hatfield House, of course, they've closed the pubs down. So what did they do? They created a little van and were driving and doing little doorstop pop-ups and delivering perfectly poured pints of Guinness to your house.
I love that.
Respecting social distancing, but they would pour your pint, you would watch them pour your pint, and they would deliver it to you. And that's an incredibly creative way to look at how do I diversify income? How do I overcome challenges in a really challenging time? Take the time, pause, have a look at your business model, your creative and marketing, have a look at your customers and clients, products and services and channels and distributions. Like a really good look at it. What are the things that you can leave behind? Consider the irreducible minimum tailored to your business. The what, so all of the requirements, and the how, so the demand as well. What is it that your clients really want? What is it they really need? And what's all the fluff on the side that you've built up in your own head that it's a relevant service because that's what you want to do? And if you bring it down to the basic, then you are delivering the core services in the response stage, so that when you move to recovery, you can look at that and you can adapt your business model. And it's a really powerful thing to do, because once you do it, you'll understand where your business could go. And it's the same for products and services. What is it that you really need? And then how do you diversify income? There's a very apt saying, and it's, you don't need a digital strategy, you need a strategy for a digital world. And at no point in history has it ever been more crucial to turbocharge your digital perspective. And that doesn't mean that you need to start doing search and PPC and, all of a sudden become a digital native. What it means is to have a strategy that will adapt for the future. So there's going to be a new normal post COVID-19, and it will be around themes around agility and placing people at the heart of what you do, but also understanding that you can actually run a business remotely. And you would know better than anybody that that's possible. So if you can look at those business models and look at the things that you're doing, you'll have a great chance to move into recovery. And you should be looking at moving into recovery now. So where are you in that preparedness? And I would encourage anyone to just stop, have a think about what it is that you really, your core business is, and how do you take that forward and be the best that you can be. The other thing that I would really recommend is that you look to industry, look in different markets, data and insight. Look at your own data, number one. Most people don't take the time to look and say, actually, no one's actually using that service. They're not even looking at that site. Think creatively about it. When I run strategy and insights, I don't just look at where that business sits. I look at where that business sits in an entire ecosystem.
I think that's really good advice and really important information for our business owners. So thank you so much. So whilst it's true that what's done is done, no doubt we've got a really interesting and challenging road ahead of us as this all starts to play out. But thank you very much for your time today and for lending us your brains as well.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was an absolute pleasure, and good luck to everybody. It's tough times, but I'm sure everyone's going to do a fabulous job coming out of it.
That's a lovely message. Thank you.